And good evening, everyone, and welcome to another episode of JMU Sound Off. I am Jonathan McNamara, coming to you from Richmond, Virginia. It's been another big week in the preseason camp for JMU football as they get set for the opening game against Charlotte in just 2 weeks. So 2 weeks left until we are all down in Charlotte, North Carolina. And a big episode today as we bring on 4 members of the JMU football team who are going to give us a little bit of insight into how camp has been going. We're also going to bring on Jason Novak, the strength and conditioning coach at James Madison, to get a little bit of a sense for how the off-season conditioning work at JMU is paying off now as we get closer to game 1. And then finally, we're going to get an update from Dave Riggert on his opinion on how camp has been going, as well as a little bit of an insight look into how preparations are going for broadcasts this fall. Very lucky to have great broadcast teams at JMU that bring us the games each and every week, and we really appreciate the work that Riggert and all of the media are done this offseason to bring fans closer to camp. So excited to have that conversation. As always, our podcast is brought to you by our friends from the Montpelier Collective. Big week for the Collective as Champions Drive Bourbon will officially go on sale to Montpelier Collective donors tomorrow. Make sure you're checking your emails for the links for the ability to pre-order that bourbon. Anything that is left will go on sale the following day to the general public. As always, for information about Champions Drive or for your ability to make a donation to the collective, visit montpeliercollective.com. But again, check our social channels and the email for updates on how you can pre-order. Also like to thank our friends from Skyline Financial Partners. Excited for Skyline this year. They're going to be sponsoring our Player of the Week segment as we go throughout the season, so stay tuned for that. Where's Woody? Also cooking up some new merchandise for both Sound Off as well as our friends from the Montpelier Collective, and working with some of our teams on campus at JMU. So stay tuned to where'swoody.com as well as jmusoundoff.com for updates on the new JMU merchandise that will be coming out in a couple of weeks. Also like to thank our friends from Talent Corps and Your Purple Nation. Remember, Your Purple Nation store now open in Northern Virginia as well as in Richmond, and always online at yourpurplenation.com. And finally, Joe Shoker and the friends at Shoker Enterprises. As always, we appreciate all of our sponsors. But with that, we're actually going to get to our first segment of the night. It's a new segment we're calling Athlete Spotlight, and it's sponsored by the Montpelier Collective. And with that, we're going to bring on 4 members of the JMU football team: Cole Potts, McMurtrie, Christopher Fitzgerald, as well as Eric O'Neill's. Guys, thanks for taking time out of what has been an incredibly busy camp schedule for you. Wanted to start off just by getting you guys to go around the horn in case some fans are not familiar with you. First of all, just introduce yourself, your position, and then tell us where your hometown is. We'll start with you, Cole, if at all possible.
I'm Cole Potts. I'm a right guard. I'm a 5th year, and I'm from Columbus, Ohio.
All right, Fitz, you're up next.
How you doing? My name is Christopher Fitzgerald. I'm from Youngstown, Ohio. 5th year too, and I play defensive tackle.
Awesome. Eric
O'Neill, born and raised Staten Island, New York. I'm a defensive end, and I'm going into my 4th year.
All right. And finally, Patrick.
I'm Pat McMurtrie. I'm a 6th year senior, and I'm from Verona, New Jersey.
All right, guys. First question. One of the things we wanted to highlight as a part of this sponsorship with the Montpelier Collective is the great work that all of you have been doing as Montpelier Collective athletes to connect to the community and to make real inroads and build connections through the nonprofit support that you all have done this offseason. All of you recently were featured in a Red Cross video promoting blood donation here in the community. So I'll start with you, Cole. What has it been like for you as kind of a returner here on this team to see how much of a focus there's been this offseason with engaging in the community and making sure you're giving back to the fans who have given so much to this program through your work with nonprofit partners?
I got to experience this year, like, what it is outside of JMU, like in Harrisonburg. Like, I got to work with the food bank over the summer a couple of times, and like going outside of the campus and everything, it really opens your eyes to what Harrisonburg really is and how many fans and supporters we really have out there that we don't get to see on campus every day. Like, I really enjoyed it, and I look forward to doing that again very soon, hopefully, whenever I get the next opportunity to do it. But having the community involved and everything, it's been great, and be able to work with them, we get to see so much more.
Yeah. And Fitz, that's been something that Coach Chesney said in a number of his press conferences this year, is that one thing he noticed that there really wasn't as much of a formal structure in place here with this program to work with those local nonprofits and to say thank you and to show your gratitude to the community. What's been your experience as you've gone through the spring in terms of how you all have engaged and made your presence known in the Harrisburg community?
I'm just now coming in. You know what I mean? I'm new, but they can tell that community. You know what I mean? It shows so much love. So I'm willing to eat. I can't wait to give back. You know what I mean, to the community and everything. Especially not being from here, but I can just see like the love they give the team and everything, and I love it, man. It's just crazy.
Awesome. And to you, Eric, also being a new guy here in the Harrisburg community, just seeing how much the program is really supported. What does it mean to you to be able to, again, find those opportunities to work with those nonprofit partners to find ways to make, again, inroads into showing that you really care about so much more than just what happens on the football field, but also what happens in the broader community as large?
Yeah, it's been amazing so far. Going out and really seeing the supporters is different, not something I'm used to. It's amazing to be a part of. We went to the schools in the spring, and to be able to see all those younger kids that are so into the school, are so into the football team, and how much you mean to them. It's been huge, and we're trying to stress going out and doing our good for the community just as much as everything else.
That's awesome. And Pat, last to you, you have had the opportunity, obviously, to be with Coach Chesney and have seen that this is not something that's new to him. This has been a part of his entire coaching journey, is making sure that giving back to the community is an essential part of the foundation of the program. Maybe speak to your experience with how you did that at Holy Cross and how that's transitioned here to now your time with the Dukes.
Yeah, so honestly, it's pretty similar with how he does it, and a lot of the time when we were at Holy Cross, it was pretty similar. We would do things with a lot of the different communities in Worcester, and also like Eric mentioned earlier, in the spring, here we went with to all the different schools in Harrisonburg, and that was something that we did at Holy Cross also. When Coach Chesney was there. So he's just so big on bringing the community together because, if they're coming out to support you, the best thing you can do is give back and show that you care. So, since I've been here so far, it's been awesome. And, even at Holy Cross, it was the same. So that's just something that Coach Chesney, preaches to the team a lot. And, it's been pretty cool, to be able to do that in Harrisonburg so far.
Awesome. Steve.
So it's good to see you guys tonight, and I've got some just group questions, and I'll kind of go around the horn. I guess the first one I'll ask is, what did you think of the band last night?
The band, I thought it was phenomenal. Having them out there, you could tell the energy was on a whole different level than it usually is. Running out of the tunnel with the band that playing with us, it was just like it was a game day on a Saturday night. It was awesome.
How about you, Christopher? What did you think about that?
Having the band out there gave me butterflies, just like it's my game day. It's new for me. I'm not used to something like that, so it was very exciting to see that happen, and yeah, it was just an exciting moment.
Wait till you see 25,000 streamers coming and hitting the field. That's going to be a blast. Eric, what'd you think of it?
I thought they were phenomenal. They were really good, and they were really loud, almost to a point where it got a little annoying. No, I'm kidding. But, no, it was awesome. I've never had a band like that, to be able to experience it. I can't wait for game day.
Well, you'll see when you're on defense, we're louder in the stands than the band is. So we'll be screaming, the band will be playing, and you're going to be looking around thinking, God, I can't hear a damn thing. Pat, I know you guys have a band at Holy Cross, but not 535 people. So
No.
It's probably a little bit different experience.
Yeah, it was a lot different. What was crazy was pretty much from the second we took the field before the scrimmage, and then pretty much up until literally the end of the scrimmage, they didn't stop. So, they were loud, but what was really amazing to me was that it was for the entire time, and they just pretty much kept going even till when the scrimmage was done. So that was pretty impressive to see what they were doing.
Yeah, it was cool. So let me get into my I guess the first question I've got for each of you, and I'll go around the horn again, is what's the biggest positive change you've seen in a position group since camp started? And I'll start with Eric.
Do you mean like pick a certain position group? Or
Yeah, if you see, I didn't want to pick individuals, but if there's a group that you've seen grow more in camp than any other group, or is there one that sticks out to you from the start of camp to where they are now? That's kind of in terms of a positive change.
I know it's easy to say because obviously I'm playing with them, but experiencing the change that we have made in the D-line so far, coming in the spring, I thought our first couple of spring practices as a D-line were pretty hard to watch. And it was obviously because we had a lot of new people come in, and you got to get used to playing with everyone around you. But I felt as the spring went on and as we got to know each other in the summer, our bond made it so much easier for us to play. And we're so comfortable now playing with each other. We could just, play how we want to. We're not, uptight. We're just playing loose and doing our thing.
The D-line and the O-line look like they've been playing together for 6 or 7 years. I mean, it doesn't usually look that good in terms of how well you guys have gelled. And you guys probably feel that, I would imagine, that both sides, both O-line and D-line, seem to have gelled.
Yeah, happened so quick, too. So quick.
Yeah. Chris, what do you think? What's the biggest positive change you've seen with the beginning of camp till now, to about mid-camp?
I just feel like everybody's attitude and everything like that. I feel like boys are believing in everything and starting to buy in, and they can just see it all coming together. Everything Coach Chesney and us, we've been working so hard for. I just feel like everybody's just buying into everything, and I feel like every position group, you can see the O-line, you can see they look good. One of the best O-line I have faced. The D-lines working together, receivers, safeties, cornerbacks, anybody, running backs. I feel like everybody's working good together, and I just feel like everybody just have good spirits when they're around each other, and it's like a family.
Cole, same question. Any biggest positive change in a position group that you've seen since the beginning of camp?
I'm going to have to go with D-line too, honestly. Ever since like day one to now, you can just see how much they improve every single day. Working together, figuring out what they got to do. They play hard every single play, no matter if it's the first one of practice to the end. Like they wear us offensive linemen out no matter what. Like sometimes it's not fun to go against them. I'm not gonna lie.
And what about you, Pat? What biggest change have you seen? Kind of positive change in the group, any position group since camp started?
Yeah, I mean, I would say the D-line, just kind of going off Cole. It's definitely, at least for us, it's been good every single day because, a lot of the stuff that they're doing, it kind of really forces us to be on our game, and you really can't slack off at all because, you're going to get exposed out there if you're not on it. So it kind of forces us to make sure, we're all locked in with our communication and stuff and, how we're doing it. But 100%, I think the D-line's doing a great job. Like Cole said, every single day they play hard, and they're also just giving us some tough looks every single day. So I'd have to say that group for sure.
It's the deepest O-line and D-line group that I can remember. Last time we had this deep of a D-line was when Sam Daniels played, and it was Arthur Moats and DJ Bryant and a bunch of guys cycling in, but they weren't as deep as you all are on the D-line. Same thing on the O-line. I mean, the O-line's, that's the 2004 team is the last time I remember the O-line being this deep. And so it's interesting to see. It's kind of come full circle in the last kind of 20 years. Let me ask you, the second question I've got is, and I'll, again, go around the horn. I'll start from backwards to forward. So I'll start with Pat. Tell me how you guys have clicked so quickly. It's Dave Riggert's talked about it in all of his interviews. I've seen it. It's surprising. I shouldn't say I'm surprising, but it is a little surprising. It's a lot of people that have come in, but it seems like you guys really have built a bond that usually doesn't happen until later in the year. So I'll start with Pat. How did this happen so fast?
I mean, I just think it started in the winter. When we started winter workouts, it was pretty funny because, we all had like names on our shirts, and there was just so many new faces. And so the coaches kind of forced us to, right from the start, just to kind of get to know each other. And then, obviously just going through, winter workouts, going through spring ball, and then obviously doing the summer training with Coach Novak. none of that stuff is easy to do. And, you know, at the end of the day, if you're not bought in as a team, that stuff's just, you know, get a lot harder to go through. So I think just kind of going through some of those, you know, tough situations in the off season, I think that kind of definitely, you know, brought everyone together. And, you know, I think the summer was awesome for the entire team just to all be together and working out and stuff.
Now, Cole, you're the JMU vet out of this group. These are all three new guys. You know, you were there. You've been there for forever. It seems like you've been there for 10 years. I know you probably feel the same way after a while. How did it work for the guys that were with the team and now the new guys that have come in? Because it can be very easy to reject those guys or freeze them out or not really be as welcoming, but that hasn't happened. How were you able to kind of open that up and you know, have them all kind of come in and you welcome them in as well as you have?
Well, every time a new person walks in, they're your new brother, no matter what. Like, you're playing with them, right next to them every single day. You wake up and see them, the sunrise with them, and you go to bed and you see the sunset with them. We're together all day, every day, especially during camp. We have so much time together outside, like off the field, where like in the locker room, that I'd say the biggest bonds begin in the locker room, playing the PlayStation together in between breaks and stuff. Like, we're always constantly together, no matter what, getting to know each other, figuring out who each other are, and just building the brotherhood.
Chris, what are you thinking on that in terms of, you know, how you guys have meshed so quickly?
Man, I think it starts from the head man. You know, he's a very genuine guy, and he got a good coaching staff. So they're really good people. So they look for good people. This me coming in, you know what I mean, and other people coming in. It just felt welcome. You know, it felt like a family. So it's kind of hard not to, you know what I mean, be nice and tight together and be like, these are my brothers and everything. It's kind of hard. Everybody just welcoming, and it just I'm enjoying my time here, man. I ain't never experienced nothing like it, so it's very hard not to.
Eric, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree with Chris. I think the coaches, you know, they're not only recruiting for talent and how you are on the field. I think they really looked into how you are as people, and that helped. You know, a bunch of good people coming in together. We all have different backstories. We were all, you know, most of us were doing at a different school last year, and I think us being good people and being able to bond, as soon as we started playing together, it was like natural for us. And, you know, we all made friends so fast, which was, you know, surprising to me in a way. But, you know, I've made a lot of friends very fast here.
You can't teach character and you can't teach hard work, and all of you are high character. That entire team is full of high character, hardworking guys. So congratulations on that. Let me turn it over to Michael. Let him ask you some questions.
What's up, guys? I was telling my friends I was excited for this episode because we've literally got a big crew on board. So we got the O-line and D-line here tonight. Contrast to Steve, I've got individual questions because I think you guys all bring your own perspectives to JMU. I'll start with you, Cole. I'm not gonna lie, man. I remember when you came in. I think it was 2019. This is your sixth season now, right, at JMU? Technically, your seventh because you played 2 seasons in 2020, if I remember.
Fifth year, yeah.
Fifth year, yeah.
Yeah,
well,
COVID.
It's amazing, man. I love seeing your journey here, coming from Ohio and now really solidifying yourself on the offensive line. My question for you is this: so, you know, last year, you know, due to injuries and such, they experienced a lot of adversity up front. You know, we had tackles playing guard, centers playing guard, guards playing tackle. Tell us as fans, like, what can we expect out of the O-line in 2024? And what are you particularly excited about to show, you know, at Bridgeforth come 8th or, you know, game 1 on 8/31 that you're excited to share with JMU Nation and above?
I'd say what I'm excited about in our offensive line, our tight-knit group we have. Like, we're working together every single day. Our communication right now is key. Like, we're communicating better than we ever have. And we have, like, our depth is crazy. We have guys that could be able to go in the game at any second, no matter what position. We have guys working multiple positions. So, like, if anything happens like it has in the past, they're right in the game. They know what they can do. They've already worked with each other. Everyone's working with each other during camp and practice, so nobody is different. Like, I can be thrown in with anybody right now, no matter what group they are, and I'll feel comfortable. Like, not just working with Pat every single day, but I'm working with other people. But our O-line, I'd say our chemistry is great right now.
Awesome. What's something maybe like you're looking to prove to yourself in 2024? You know, this is your last season. You've grown leaps and bounds, like physically and also mentally at JMU, and you're going to come away with a degree from James Madison as well. Like, what's something you want to prove to yourself on the field?
I want to prove to myself, I would say, have the best year I had so far. Like, my goal is I want to be first team all conference. That's my goal.
Love that. Love that. We'll hold you to it then. Thanks, Cole.
Thank you.
Chris, we'll go over to you, man. When we found out, or I found out that you came from Youngstown State, I was so excited. I'd be remiss if I didn't notice those monster games you had against our old friends in Fargo versus North Dakota State. Yeah, I think those are 2 or 3 of your best games when you were playing at Youngstown State. Tell us a little bit about your journey to JMU. What position you played at Youngstown State, and how do you think that translates to the scheme that Coach Hemphill's put together?
I played the same position, you know what I mean, nose, 3 tech. So my journey here, it was crazy. Decided to hit the portal, to have better opportunities, and come across Coach Sam Daniels. He hit me up, and ever since then, you know, it's been wonderful. And it's just the defense here is, you know what I mean, it's nice. I'm learning, you know what I mean. It's definitely it's new for me, but I'm learning, and I've been enjoying myself since.
What surprised you or maybe caught you off guard since joining JMU? Maybe like, was the stadium bigger than you thought? Was the band louder than you thought it was? Maybe was the food on campus, better than you thought it was as well? Like, what caught you off guard since coming to Harrisonburg?
It's the people, man. You know, that's always, that's what makes every place that you go. It's the people, and just being around the team and the people in Harrisonburg. It's a different vibe. It just feel, like I said, it's give you a bubbly feeling, feel welcome, and that's been the difference for me.
Awesome, I love it. Thank you, Chris. Pat, I'll come over to you, man. Coming from Holy Cross, I think one of the most underrated additions to this program was we essentially got 2 offensive line coaches, right? Like, you've worked with Coach Smith for a while, Coach Z as well, both coming in there. I think that's going to be a storyline to watch, right, going into the season. I'd love to kind of hear from you. I think last year at Holy Cross, you had, I think, CJ Hansen, who's playing in the NFL. You've got another teammate that's, I think, in a P4 conference now. You're obviously in the best situation and the best program at JMU now. So, like, tell us a little bit about, the style, the Holy Cross style, and what you did last year and what you're going to bring over to JMU this year.
Yeah, I mean, I think with both Coach Czar and Coach Meth, at the end of the day, there was a lot that they taught, but the biggest thing with both of them was just playing hard. At the end of the day, X's and O's are important, but if you go out and play hard, you're going to put yourself in a good position. And so I think, coming from Holy Cross, that was something, that they both preached, for the 4 years I was with Coach Smith, and then, last year with Coach Czar, is just, play as hard as you possibly can every single play. And, I think coming here, it really I've been hearing it for a long time, but that's kind of the same message is, at the end of the day, we got to be able to communicate together, and, that's really important. But at the end of the day, it's just about going and every single snap that you're out there playing as hard as you possibly can.
I love it. Love it. Keep playing until the whistle blows, right? Like, just finish
through the whistle. That's what they say.
There you go. I listened to your interview with Dave Riggert a couple weeks back. It looks like it sounds like you played basketball growing up, right? That was like your sport of choice originally.
Yeah, it was. I didn't start football till a little later. I think it was like 7th grade was when I first started playing. So I was always a basketball guy, and then once I got to playing football, I had a lot of different coaches tell me that you can set yourself up with a good future if you start working with this, and so that was kind of what I did. And obviously I'm really lucky because I've pretty much from high school through college, I've just had tremendous coaches that I've played for, and honestly, like that's really the biggest reason why I'm where I'm at right now. So it really has to do with all the coaches I've been able to play for.
Love it. I must ask, who's like your favorite player that you modeled your game against, like growing up, and like how do you think some of those skills translate to right tackle, if any?
I mean, like when I'm watching, like obviously, if we're watching NFL, I do love Lane Johnson. I think just for a guy that plays the same position, so that's kind of a guy that I've always I just kind of watch if they're on TV. That's usually if the Eagles are on. Even it's funny because I'm a Giants fan, so it's kind of weird watching him because it's I'm always rooting for the Eagles to lose, but that's kind of a guy that I always like watch playing. So I would probably say him.
Awesome. Yeah, Lane Johnson, I think if I remember, he started out his career at tight end and then eventually bulked up and moved to right tackle. So he's had an interesting career for sure. So awesome. Thanks, Pat. I'm excited to see you kick it off on the field on 8:31. Eric O'Neill, I'll turn it over to you, man. I think I'll put on your LIU tape. I think you were just living in the backfield at Long Island. You were just all over the place at defensive end. Love to hear from you, right? I listened to some of the interviews with your teammate Lloyd Summerall. He's on the other side of the line. What do you think? Is it a similar position that you played at LIU? Is it a little bit of go up the field, or are you there to set the edge? Tell us a little bit about your role here going forward.
No, I'm gonna be playing a lot outside, a lot more here. Long Island, they had me, kind of everywhere, but 56% of the time I was playing inside, which is, tougher for me as a smaller D lineman. I think I have a lot more freedom here playing, a true defensive end. And I think it suits me more as a player to be able to, show what I could do on the outside instead of, let the big guys take on the double teams inside. And, I'll have the fun trying to make the plays. But
there you go. Tell us, give us the high level version, what drew you to James Madison. I think, similar to, Cole's story, we've had a history of very strong, formidable offensive lines, and we've also had a strong history of defensive lines as well. So you've got some big shoes to fill up front. So what drew you to the program?
Yeah. So, I tell a lot of people this. I remember last year I was, when I was playing at Long Island, all our games were usually at noon. And then after, I would, a lot of times end up watching JMU football because of, how amazing their year was last year. They're undefeated up until I think it was December or something like that. They had college game day there, and everyone was talking about it. My dad was telling me oh, turn on the JMU game, they're killing it again. And, that was during the year. And then when I hit the portal, and Coach Daniels came over here and I came on my visit, with everything we talked about, and when I met the coaches, some of the players, saw the facilities, there was no doubt that, this was the place that I wanted to go to. And it was instant for me that I told them, yeah, I'm coming here.
I love it. I was telling the folks on the last week's episode. So when I was a freshman at James Madison, and Coach Daniels was a senior. So we'd see 58 yapping on the field, making plays in the backfield. His teammate was Arthur Modes, and he obviously made it to the NFL. And that was a special defensive front. And I imagine we'll have a special defensive front this year also. Real quick, Cole, I've got a bonus question for you, man. I'm kind of pulling back the encyclopedia here. I'll take you back to 2020. Probably wasn't the best memory you had, but at Sam Houston, there's a certain player that ran back a couple of kickoffs for touchdowns, and I think his little brother is now in the backfield for us, and Ayo Adei. I'm curious, does he ever mention, does he ever talk a little trash about that, or does that ever come up in conversations at all?
Honestly, no, he's never brought that up. As you said it now, I do remember that.
Yeah. I think it came up in an interview, and I was like, oh, man, that's a blast from the past. But I think Ayo is going to be a great addition to the team. I'm sure you guys love blocking for him.
Absolutely. He makes our life easy.
Love it.
Awesome. Well, guys, we said we'd keep you 10 minutes. We kept you 23, so we want to let you get back to the rest of your night. But thanks again for everything you guys are doing, the sacrifices off the field and on the field to get ready for what's going to be another great year of JMU football. And just know there's so many people that are not only tuning into this show, but so many of the other programs that are rooting you guys on. And so many of us will be making the trips not only up to Bridgeport to watch you all season, but making the trips on the road. So wish you guys all the health, all the best for the remainder of camp, and excited to see you in 2 weeks down in Charlotte.
Thank you so much.
Go Dukes. And with that, we're going to bring on the second guest for tonight's episode. Someone who is work has been instrumental in making sure that this team was prepared for this camp and the upcoming season. And we wanted to highlight some of the things that are going on behind the scenes in the strength and conditioning program. And that's what we thought it'd be great to have on Coach Jason Novak, the Director of Strength and Conditioning at James Madison University. Coach Novak, thanks for taking time out of your schedule as well. I know is a lot going on behind the scenes to get ready for Game 1 in Charlotte. Easiest question to start off. Give us a little bit of background into your journey before you came to Harrisonburg, because I think it's important to know a little bit of where you came from to establish the credibility and the great work that you're doing here now in Harrisonburg.
Yes, sir. First, thank you for having me. I enjoyed getting to listen to those guys in the previous segment, and appreciate you having me on tonight. So, I came with Coach Chesney in January. Prior to coming to JMU, I was at Michigan State the last 4 years as the head strength and conditioning coach, and bounced around a little bit and was down at IMG as the head of strength and conditioning down there, and Central Michigan University, and spent 11 years in the NFL. So probably a pretty diverse resume if you added it all up, as far as places that I've been fortunate to work with, and players that I've been able to coach.
Awesome. And then you come to Harrisonburg. What's been your initial impression of the Harrisonburg area, not just and Bridgeforth Stadium and the football program before you ever came to Harrisonburg? Were you familiar with JMU football? What was kind of your background into this program before you arrived on campus?
Yeah. So first off, Harrisonburg has been amazing. Like, it's gorgeous. My family got here mid-July, and so the mountains and everything, it's just beautiful. So we've really enjoyed that. Familiar with JMU, yes, because obviously the season that was had last year, watched a lot of the games, saw College Game Day and things like that. We actually had a football player at Michigan State that transferred here to JMU. And so it was funny seeing him on day one, because I told Antoine, I said, "You thought you got away from me, but here I am." And so, yeah, I've been very familiar with James Madison from afar, and it's lived up to the billing, man, of being here and the excitement of the town. And I mean, you can't look left or right without seeing purple. And I just think that's really, really cool.
That's awesome. Steve.
Well, Coach, what's the biggest change that you've seen, I guess, since you got here early in the year and until now, in terms of the way the guys are looking and working out? What's the biggest change you've seen?
I think the biggest change is conditioning levels. That was premium to me as far as wanting to address that and make sure. I just know that, in this business, fatigue injuries happen more during fatigue states, mental errors, missed assignments, things like that in fatigue states. And so I just knew if conditioning was a premium, it allowed them to really display their God-given abilities. It's nothing that we build in the weight room that they don't have in them. We just kind of chisel at it and build an environment that they get to create what they're designed to be. But the conditioning side is something that we really attacked, and they did a great job with that, and they embraced that, and I've noticed that in camp so far.
So when you say that in terms of conditioning, can you give folks a little bit of insight into kind of how you build out that athlete? And when you first got here, the conditioning wasn't where you wanted it, I'm sure. So, from January till now, you've gotten them into a different state than they were 7 months ago, 8 months ago. Can you just talk a little bit about, what you did without, giving any secrets, but,
Sure.
How did you help them build up that conditioning?
Yeah. And so, naturally, as through the course of the season, you'll decondition a little bit just by the amount of games you play in the time span. So at the end, you end up being in phenomenal football shape, but you're not in great physical condition. There's a lot of bumps and bruises, aches and pains that they're dealing with and things like that. We all took the conditioning test back in the day at the beginning of camp, and you kill it. And if you ever got asked to do that conditioning test on the last day of the season, nobody would pass, right? And so the conditioning is different. And what we wanted to do is build a foundation and a base in the weight room with the volumes and things like that of the reps of the exercises that we train. And then it's cumulative. So you need that winter to build a really good base. And then where we were fortunate is we didn't take a backseat to training during spring ball. We still trained like it was off season during spring ball. So we still lifted, 3 days a week. We ran twice still. And then the summer, that sets you up really, really well to hit the ground running. The one thing I would say as a compliment to our roster is they did a great job training over the month of May, because that's the month that kind of establishes your summer, because the players are away from you, and they came back ready to roll, and we didn't have to rebuild or start from scratch. And they did a phenomenal job. So that I was like, we're going to have a great summer when they came back and they were ready to roll like that.
Can you talk a little bit about the technology that you're using in the weight room? Because, all of us that back in the day, and it's been a long, long time, there was not the technology you have now that you have in the weight room. Can you talk a little bit about how you're able to measure reps and how you're able to measure what the load the guys are doing and if they're not doing enough and how that all works?
Yes. So we have a system that's called Perch. And basically what it does, it's a series of cameras on the rack with iPads, and it measures the velocity of the bar. And so what we're able to do now is we're able to assign speeds that we want guys to accomplish these lifts at, whether it's an Olympic lift like a snatch or a clean, or a slower lift like a squat or bench. And so it's a lot safer way to train, because there's thresholds now that you don't add weight to the bar if you're not moving it at the speed prescribed. But then also too, there's a way that now there's quantifiable numbers that you can measure every day, so that now are guys increasing power? Are they increasing strength in the room? Are they fatigued nervous system wise? Because, man, you see a guy do something and he's always moving it quick as a cat, and then today it's not moving like that anymore. Or you have a series of a few days not moving like that anymore. And now something's going on. And sometimes they're screaming, I need to pull back. I need to regenerate a little bit. And so it's a really good way to make sure, the biggest thing in my business, I guess you'd say, is you really don't want to go so far that you have to undo something, because you don't have that opportunity. And what I mean by that is, like, it's all nervous system. And when guys say, man, my legs are dead, your legs aren't dead. Your nervous system is shot, right? And that's a pretty long recovery to get that back. And so we want to be very mindful and careful to not do that. So that's where Perch comes in, measuring speeds and velocities, keeps the guys very safe, but it also creates an unbelievable level of competition in the room, because they all know the speeds and velocities that they're hitting. So now who's the top guy in the room at the exercise that we're doing? So inherently they're going to compete. And that just kind of, that fosters that a little bit better.
Let me turn you over to Taylor.
Yes, sir.
All right, Coach Novak, thank you again for joining us tonight. I know this time of year is pretty busy, and it will be for the next few months. So I spent some time went to JMU, worked at JMU, went to UTSA when they started their football program. And one of the new coaching staffs we got down there, I remember when the players were doing a lot of press that year, almost every player was commenting on the strength and conditioning coach that was brought in and the impact he was having on their ability to compete at the level that they were rising to, moving into Conference USA and moving into that FBS level. So I've seen firsthand the importance of your position, but a lot of people, I'm sure they assume there's much more to strength and conditioning than just lifting weights and running and keeping. But you've had such a diverse background. You talked to Jonathan earlier about FCS, FBS, NFL. Put into context your kind of so far what your experience with JMU has been from a resources standpoint, and what has really impressed you about this program and where it is today compared to other places you've been in the past.
Yeah. So resources wise, we've been able to add a lot of pieces to the strength and conditioning program and the football organization. We added Catapult. We brought that in when Coach Chesney got in January. So that's a GPS device. So now we're able to monitor the players in real live time as far as distances and speeds and cuts left, cuts right, you name it. But we're able to monitor that now live for every practice that we're out on the field. We also monitor it for every run during the strength and conditioning program. So that's a huge one. What that is the on-field partner to Perch in the weight room. And so now we've been able to marry those together, and our two different data sets telling us the same thing. And so that's been incredible. And I would say from getting here in January, I talked with Coach Chesney about this a lot. We lived together for 6 months when we got here, so we had a lot of conversations in the evenings. And this is unique because we were coming into a program that they were 11-1 last year, went to the first bowl game, and the success historically over years is phenomenal. So you're not coming into a 3-9 team where the guys don't know how to work and they don't know what strain really is. And they, you're trying to change a culture. The guys from the get-go, man, to a man, they are so compliant. They're so easy to get them to go. Like I say about them a lot, you got to say whoa a lot more times than you have to say go to them. And so we just had to channel that and funnel it. And from the day one, I just said, hey, listen, you guys worry about how. Let me worry about what. You just go as hard as you can from start to finish. Let me worry about what we do, and I'll make sure it's appropriate. And Coach Chesney talks a lot. You handle intensity, we'll handle volume. And that's been kind of a deal that we've made with the players is when it's go time, it is go time. All out, all out. But we're going to make sure it's safe and smart, and it's built for football as well. And so we've adopted that into the strength and conditioning program as well. And man, it's fun to watch them because they go at it and they're very eager. And we're not coaching effort. That's kind of the, effort in college football at this level. That effort is the price of admission. Like you're not coaching that anymore because they wouldn't be here if you had to do that.
Right. Well, and kind of going off of that question a little bit, talk about what other variables outside of what you can control are the most important when it comes to having success with strength and conditioning, whether it's nutrition, whether it's individual player discipline, the other coaches. I mean, talk a little bit about what are the other factors that make your job success.
Yes. So you hit one of them right off the bat. Nutrition is key. You cannot out-train a bad diet. And so that's been a point of emphasis that coaches made since we got here of really improving nutrition for our players. We just hired a new dietitian for the program back in early August, Amber, and she's done a great job. And so that's a huge piece. I would tell you the best strength coach on your staff is your best recruiter. Mm-hmm. And I believe that wholeheartedly because we don't create anything in the weight room that's not there. Like the guys, like we had a lot of before and after pictures and the guys were like, oh man, that picture was great. They did that. We just took the picture, Right. And so that's part of it is, teaching these guys. And if I can impart anything to them, as far as maybe some of the places I've been or players that I've been around, is what it takes outside of the weight room and off the field to really do this at a high level and get where you want to go with it. And it's the way you sleep, the way you eat, the way you train, the way you recover. Right. Sports medicine plays a huge role in that. Those guys are your best friend because it's not taboo to go in the training room. It's maintenance. Sure. And you have to be on top of that. And so I think those are all things that are fresh. And the guys have absorbed that well and adopted those mindsets. But it's been really fun because, like I said, they're a very compliant group of young men and they work their tails off. So it's been really fun to build this with them.
Well, and you've seen some of the comments come on during the show here about some of the fans that were excited about some of those before and after pictures. So doing a great job. We're excited to have you. And I'm going to kick it over to Michael for one last question.
Thank you.
Coach Novak, thanks for joining us tonight. I think one thing I always tell people is this is probably one of the most physically mature teams I've seen in a while. I think that's a testament to your work, testament to the type of athletes we brought in here, 4th, 5th, 6th-year guys, right? So it's really phenomenal to see it all come together. So my question is, we had the O-line and D-line on tonight, and we've noticed real quick after last year, anything can happen. We lost some players to knee injuries on both sides of the ball. As a strength and conditioning coach, like without sharing too much, I guess, how do you mitigate that, right? There's going to be violence on the field on the line of scrimmage. There's going to be knees bent and whatnot. Like, what are the things you do in the offseason to help mitigate that risk and strengthen that certain players for the grind of the season?
I think one thing that we try to focus on quite a bit is training full ranges of motion is very important because the unfortunate aspect of this game is you're going to get put in extreme ranges of motion with people on top of you. And so we need to be in those patterns, full depth squatting and split stances, arm all the way overhead, things like that, so that when your body gets put in those positions, it's not such a negative reaction. And your body's like, I've been here and I know I'm strong here, so I'm okay. Because a lot of times the reaction is negative and there's a pullback, and that's when a lot of injuries happen. I think part and parcel to that really is the management and structure of practice. And that's something that Coach Chesney does such a great job with, and his coordinators and position coaches. I mean, they're dialed in with that. We talk every day with my staff, Paul Cipriano, Greg Wandy, Adrian Godardo. I mean, everybody's dialed in on what are they doing? How are we managing it? And then is this building the players or is it breaking them down? And I think fatigue causes a lot of injuries. Overuse causes a lot of injuries. From a training standpoint, we're going to try to train single leg as much as we can, because every time you run, only one foot's touching the ground. And we love having big squat numbers, but it doesn't always translate on the field as much as stabilizing the hip, the knee, and the ankle in a single leg training fashion. We're going to train overhead, and we got to offset pulls and pushes. What we try to undo is, I talk to recruits about this all the time, we try to undo the mirror mentality. Guys being guys, they're going to train in the mirror everything they see. You never have to ask them to do bicep curls. That's inherent, right? But everything on the backside is what keeps you healthy. Rear delt, upper back, glute, low back, hamstring, things like that. That's what keeps you healthy, if those things are strong and resilient. So that's the emphasis of the program, because that's what creates longevity for the player, whether it's during the season or a career or what have you. Yeah. And so trying to combat that mirror mentality a little bit.
Thanks, Coach. Awesome insight, and we're certainly fortunate to have you. So I appreciate you being on.
Yes, sir. Thank you for having me.
Well, Coach, I can't unhear your statement about how you can't untrain a bad diet, because there's cookies in the kitchen right now. When I was off camera, I thought about getting one. Heard you say that, I was like, no more, I'm done. I did want to ask you one last question, though, because I think it's really interesting that you, being one of the first coaches on this staff that really got to make your mark on this program when the transition happened in January, how special was it for you to lead that new group as we went through the transition, and then to now see it so close to game day, all that effort really come and pay off and get this foundation set for what we all believe could be another special season here in Harrisonburg?
Man, it's been amazing. And I would tell you, the thing that we emphasized from the first meeting, there were three kind of core values that we talked about, and it's on the back of their shirts every day when they wear them. But find work, add value, and take strain. And that was all we asked of them, because find work meant like there's always something in your game you could work on, right? Whether it's film room, body, sports medicine, nutrition, stretching, sleeping, didn't matter. Find work, and then add value with your words and your actions, right? To your teammate, to yourself, to the room, to the group you're in. Add value with everything that you do, and then take strain. It was upon yourself and from a teammate. And I heard you guys asking the players in the earlier panel, how have you gelled so fast and become such a tight-knit group? And I think that they've done such a great job taking strain from each other. And the adversity builds bonds, right? And the more adverse the situation, the tighter the bond. And these guys, man, they laid it on the line and they worked their tails off. And I think it's really helped them as far as the bonds that they've built and gelled so fast with so many new, because they were willing to find work and add value and take strain. And it's kind of become a punchline, because me and my staff, we yell it all the time throughout practice and in the weight room. But that's really what it's about, because, every bar in the country weighs 45 pounds. So there's no magic to that. It's how you do it. And the players control the how. And they've killed it. They've killed it.
Well, Coach, same message that we said to the players. Thank you. And thank you to your staff. There's so much that goes into making everything that happens on the field possible. And a lot of that is done by people like you who may not be as forefront in terms of the media and coverage that happens on this program, but your efforts are incredibly important to what happens on game day, and that goes for the training staff and everyone else who helps to get these players ready. And we just want to say thank you, because we know there's a lot that you sacrifice to make this happen, both professionally and family-wise. So thank you. We know it's going to be another great season of JMU football, but it's the people behind this program that make it possible. So we'll let you get back to some of your Sunday night, but we'll be really looking forward to seeing the fruits of your fruition as we go throughout the year and watch these players continue to thrive here at Harrisonburg.
Thank you so much. Very appreciative for you to have me on tonight. Thank you, guys.
Awesome. Thanks, Coach Novak. And with that, we're going to bring on someone who's been a good friend to the show since the beginning. And probably there's no one in Harrisonburg that's not on the coaching staff that knows this program better than Mr. Dave Riggert, who's working right now. First of all, Dave, I haven't had a chance. What's the score update from the soccer game right now?
Unfortunately, the Hokies have a 2-0 lead with 28 minutes left here in the second half.
Well, hey, we've seen for the World soccer can change in a moment. All we need is a couple last-minute shots. But thanks, Dave, for taking some time while you're continuing to do your job and working to bring us coverage of JMU athletics. First question for me is an easy one, and then we'll let the other guys ask them. Is you have the benefit of being out there every day, and without giving anything away that is obviously secretive or sensitive to what happens on the field. What's maybe the biggest takeaway in terms of a difference between this camp and previous versions of JMU football that you've had the experience of covering?
I think the one thing that I've noticed the most is the communication. It's been unbelievable. And talking to the guys, and that's the one thing that has been really beneficial this year for me, is I went back to kind of find out how many guys since the start of training camp, which they've had 13 practices, how many guys have I talked to? Because in the past, as you guys know, there's a pool of about 8 to 10 guys, and you get to talk to them throughout the season, but it's the same guys that you filter through every couple of weeks. I've talked to 31 different players since the start of camp, and the one thing that a lot of them say is the communication is just so much different, and mainly it's player-to-player communication. It's just guys helping each other out. And the connection that the guys talked about earlier on the show that they've talked to me about is just, it's different than I've ever seen it with any other team. And the last couple teams obviously were very connected because they had success, and you're not going to have success without being connected. But these guys are on a whole different level than what I've ever seen. This is probably the best training camp that I've seen a JMU football team. This is my third training camp, my fourth season of doing games. But there were times the past couple of years that, man, I'm not sure how many games the Dukes are going to win this year because camp has been a little bit of a struggle. So this has been the crispest, the cleanest camp so far. The communication that the guys have, I see offensive and defensive guys talking how they can help each other. Offensive linemen and defensive linemen, running backs and linebackers, wide receivers and corners. It's just a different level of communication than I've ever seen in any camp that I've ever been a part of, whether it's here or other places that I've been.
And my second question, and this I think relates to your question about communication, is there's also been a lot more voices this camp in terms of other coaches being able to share their perspective, just in terms of the access that's been afforded by this new staff, as well as just the culture on this program. Has that helped you learn more about where the direction of this team, and then also just to get more insight into how they tick, because you've been able to experience those types of interviews and conversations with such a broader group of coaches and players this offseason?
There's no doubt. And even like the stuff you guys just heard from Jason Novak is unbelievable. I mean, all the technology that they're using, the different things. I mean, I think that's something that JMU Nation just is eating up right now. And part of why there's so much excitement for this program. And again, we had a media day the other day on Wednesday at Bridgeforth, and I talked to 6 different coaches, 6 different players. All of the assistant coaches were available. That's never been the case in the past, at least the past 4 years. I usually get the coordinators for my pregame show for the broadcast, but that's it. They weren't available any other time. There was one voice of the program. That was Coach Signetti. That was his old school style. And again, it was what it was. It wasn't right. It wasn't wrong. But the access that we now have as media members, and especially me, as you mentioned, I'm at practice every single day. I communicate with these guys every single day, and I get a front door view of what's going on. And I feel like I know this team. I've got players that are coming off the field saying, "Hey, Dave, what's up?" And I feel, and not that I didn't before, but I felt a part of the programs then because I got to know the guys so well. But now I really know them because I get to interview so many more guys. They get to know me. So it's just much more on a personal level. and it's been so much fun. I'm so excited for this season, just because obviously I'm one of the biggest fans up in the booth, and obviously you can tell that with my excitement during games. But it's almost a different level now because I really have gotten to know all of these guys and all these coaches. Not that I didn't know the coaches before, but it's a different level. And now JMU Nation is getting to know their personalities and kind of what makes them tick a little bit. That's one thing the players keep saying is, we know everybody's why on this team.
Yeah.
And now I think JMU Nation is starting to know everybody's why and why they're doing it and why it means so much to them. It's the access is just unbelievable from what it used to be.
Yeah, and that access is critical, especially in this portal era, because it's so much easier to get to know and root for a personality when you get to know what makes them tick and where they've come from and the story behind them. And I think it's definitely been something that's been obvious from the staff from the get-go, is just how much they value the family, but also how much they value building those bridges to the community, not only through their community service, but again, also getting people a little bit of an insight into how this program works and what drives the people behind it. And it's been really cool to see in your coverage and the coverage of shows like us and other programs who have been getting that access. Taylor.
You, in a lot of ways, might have answered this question in what you just talked about with Jonathan, but we've heard the term brotherhood thrown around a lot. I've heard the players mention it. I've heard coaches mention it. I've heard people, Steve on this program has mentioned it a lot, but it's also a term that, you hear a lot of programs say. We've said it in the past, but to everything you just said, there's something different. And that term brotherhood, I don't think it's a cliche that's being thrown around. What is it? I mean, what is that special thing that really seems to have this team gelled together as a family in an era where teams are made out of the transfer portal, and it's not guys that have been on a team with each other for 2, 3, 4 years. I mean, what are you seeing that's really making this kind of a brotherhood, a family this preseason?
Part of it is what I just kind of talked about. All the players talk about, they know everybody's why. That's something they've done in team meetings, is that they know why they're doing this, why they want to be a good football player, who they're doing this for, whether that be a mom or a dad or a brother or someone who has passed away, whatever it is. They know deep down why somebody wants this so bad. When you know those types of things, well, you're going to put it all on the line. Not that they didn't before, but there's just a little something extra when you know somebody's why and what they want to do. And this truly is, it's been amazing to see this. And it blew me away when I was talking with some of the players that have been here. Like I mentioned, I've talked to a lot of different guys, and the guys that are returning players have said that, they've all said this to a man. We didn't know everybody on the roster the last couple of years. They didn't know everybody's name. They didn't know some of the backup linemen. They didn't know the offense and defense didn't really hang out. I didn't know that. And I'm pretty close to this program. I didn't know that the offense and defense really didn't hang out. Sure, there was probably some, but there were guys that said, it was kind of the defense is kind of the offense. And those teams were connected. They were really connected, but they're not like this. This is just different. And Coach Chesney has made it a point to get these guys in and make sure they know about each other, that they go hang out with other people. Again, they were in the dorms for 2 weeks during training camp where they couldn't leave, and they had to get to know each other. And guys like Jacob Dobbs and some of the veterans that they brought in, they were able to kind of lead that. And it's not forced. Yes, they do things to make them learn everybody's name, but it's not forced. They're doing activities to do it, but the guys enjoy it. And everything they're learning from this coaching staff, they tell them why they're doing it. And for young kids these days, I think that is totally different than it's ever been, because there are so many coaches, they'll yell at you, they'll tell you what to do. That's it. Just go do it. They don't tell them why. There's a why to everything that they're doing, everything this coaching staff is doing, everything that Coach Novak is doing in the strength and conditioning room. There's a why. The guys understand it. Oh, okay. They see it firsthand. It's been unbelievable to see this team come together. Wins and losses, who knows? Right. I think they'll be very successful. But this program is in such good shape right now. It is unbelievable with bringing 58 new guys in, 31 transfers. The state that the program in is absolutely unbelievable.
So, I mean, going off of all of that, let's talk about the other thing that's kind of come up in some of these interviews. I think Jacob Dobbs mentioned it. I think Coach Chesney mentioned it when he was on here, is how fun practice is. I mean, if for those of us that played, high school football and kind of how it's portrayed maybe in movies and TVs, practice is this grueling thing that you have to do because you're making it to the games. But some of these videos that are being released on social media. I mean, it just seems like if practice was scheduled for another 2 hours, that they would love to be out there for every second of it. And obviously the assumption is, the coaching staff has brought in this mentality and this culture where everyone out there just loves being out there. But what have you seen from that? And is that a true assumption of these players at practice?
It's absolutely true. And I love talking to the guys that were here before. And again, I got to see so many practices the last couple of years, but I could almost tell you every day what was going to happen. They were the same practices over and over. Each day was maybe a little bit different, but it was the same routine over and over and over again. Not that it's wrong, but that's just how it was done. But now Coach Chesney, he has a script, but he changes that script every single day. He will add in periods. He will take away periods. He will add in a compete. The other day at practice, at the end, it was a 2-minute drill. They were down 8, so I had to get a touchdown and 2-point conversion, and the offense did that. Well, he whistled everybody in, got them in. It was like they were done, and he was going to talk to them. And then he talked to them for a minute, and then he's just like, well, we just scored and got the 2-point conversion, so guess what? Overtime. And so they did a true overtime period, which was not on the script. The guys didn't know about. They threw it out there. And that's something that Coach Chesney does every single day. If there's something that he thinks of in a situation, they put them in so many situations, and everything's very short. It's 5 to 7 minutes. It's station to station. Sometimes they'll stretch. They'll go do some individual stuff. They'll come back and finish stretching. It's not just let's go stretch for 10 minutes. Let's do whatever for 10 minutes. They mix it up. Some coaches, and in the past, it's been like this, where you get all your individual work done early in practice, and then it's team the rest of the practice. That has never been the case at any one of these practices. You do individual for a little while, you'll go do special teams. You'll go do team. You'll go do a compete period, which the guys love and get after it. Then you'll come back to individual. Then you'll go back to team. So it's just moving around so fast, and the guys are sprinting from station to station, and it just keeps them on their toes. And practice seems to fly by fast, and the guys love it. And the coaches get upset with them when they don't cheer even a first down. Any success that they have, they want them to celebrate all of the successes. Don't just act like you've been there before. That was kind of the mentality in the past. No, celebrate it. It's football. Go celebrate your successes, even if it is a first down. It doesn't matter. This is the one camp where I've never seen the offense as vocal as they've been throughout camp. So it's both sides chirping at each other, but they're having a hell of a time doing it. It's been a blast to watch practice every single day.
Well, my last question, and this may be slightly an unfair question to ask, but I know it's something that's on the minds of a lot of JMU fans. The last few years of FCS were national championship contenders. The first 2 years of FBS, we're top 25 and we're winning the Eastern Division of the Sun Belt. Everything that you've just described to me, every interview that I've heard and everything I see coming out of camp, it leads a lot of people to think the hype is real. And as you mentioned earlier, the ball bounces one way. There could have been 3 or 4 games last year that go, so no one's predicting the future. No one's predicting wins and losses. But is it safe to say that from what you're seeing and your pulse and everything, like the hype is real? I mean, this is a team worthy of high expectations, and that, the expectation of what you expect from JMU football, from what you're seeing in preseason, is something that we kind of should expect to see continuing going forward. Is that a fair question to ask? I mean, how would you answer that?
That's a fair assessment. The expectations, I think, will be the same while Coach Chesney's here. Hopefully that's for a long time, but they will be extremely high. And I think every year he is here, including this season, they will be contenders to compete for a Sun Belt East championship to then go play for the Sun Belt title. I think this team is good enough to compete in the East Division. I don't think there's any question about that. Again, wins and losses, I don't know. Sure. But I feel like this is a team that will compete for a Sun Belt East championship to at least give them a shot. And obviously this year they can go play for that Sun Belt championship. So this is a team that I really like this team a lot. I do. And again, obviously I'm biased. We all are, right?
We all are.
but I do believe the hype is real. And again, there could be some games that don't go their way. Certainly that could be the case. But this is going to be a team that will compete for an East championship. I don't think there's any question about that. I've got high expectations, but I don't think they're any higher than the players and the coaches. They expect to compete.
And we've seen that in these interviews.
That's why they are here. They want to compete for championships, and they don't want to back down from that, and they shouldn't. And at a place like JMU is a place that competes for championships. And again, they don't want, even though it's year one and there's so many new guys, they want to compete for championships, and I think they will.
Love it. I'm off to you, Michael.
Dave, before I ask my question, I just want to do a quick plug for you. If our listeners, if you're not following JMU Radio Network on Spotify and whatnot, and listening to some of your awesome interviews with like Tyler Purdy, OD, Logan Kyle, I think you had him on recently. It's a must follow. I just drove back from North Carolina for a wedding, and I think I just listened to interviews for the entire 3 hours. It was great, Dave. So thank you for your amazing content and just being a great voice for JMU. My question for you is to go with this. I was preparing for a podcast earlier this week, and there's a lot of questions around, Jacob Dobbs. He's the guy coming from Holy Cross. But when you look at some of the defensive transfers, you have guys like Ray Williams from Howard, Chris Shearer from UConn, obviously Spence from Holy Cross. These were the guys at their prior programs. 4-year starters. Eric O'Neill, he was the guy at LIU. Tell us a little bit about like the chemistry. I'm not saying it's an all-star group, right, of like FCS and FBS players coming together, but these were formidable starters, 3 to 4 year starters at other programs that now chose to spend their last 1 or 2 years at JMU. What's that chemistry like? Like, how does that look like on the field? Like, I'm curious if you have any narrative or commentary on that.
The one thing that stood out to me is just the way practice is structured to get guys so many reps. In the past, and again, I think this is the how it is at most places, is that you'd have your ones go out there and probably ones against twos. Again, that's how it was in the past. But there'd only be an offense and a defense on the field. With Coach Chesney's practices, they split the 50-yard line. One side, it's one group. The other side is the other group. They run one play on one side, and immediately after that, there's a play going on the other side. So whether you're a 1 or a 2, you're getting almost the exact same amount of reps. So these guys, I don't feel like there really isn't a depth chart right now because they've intertwined all of these guys. Sometimes they're with the purple group, which is most of the ones. But again, there's a white group, a purple group, a gold group. But they put them on different groups almost every single day. And they get almost the exact same reps. At least the purple and the whites get the most reps. Those are your 1s and 2s, and then you mix guys in. But it's just been amazing to see because it doesn't seem like anybody who was a starter anywhere else has come in and complained about playing time because they're all getting really the same amount of playing time. Now, again, that'll be the issue once games start. You can't play everybody. You can't have as many reps for everybody. I think now after the second scrimmage on Saturday, that will kind of pare things down a little bit. Coach Chesney talked about that with us, the media, after the scrimmage last night, that they'll start to be a little separation now, and they'll start to get probably the top 11 guys plus the guys they're going to play. But I think this is the deepest team that I've seen here. And that's saying something because the last couple of years, obviously the first year at FBS, that was going to be a struggle. They didn't have the depth. Last year was better, but I think this year is better because they're bringing in guys like you mentioned that have been starters other places. And even a Chris Fitzgerald right now, who was a starter at Youngstown State, I think is a really defensive line after they brought in the guys that they brought in the spring and the defensive secondary after the spring. They really solidified those two spots with a lot of depth. So guys don't really see it as I'm a 1, I'm a 2. They're getting the same amount of reps in practice, which isn't the case all the time. You pretty much have a clear cut. These are your top 11 or so, and they're getting most of the reps. That's not the case with these practices. Now, again, it could change a little bit when games start happening and guys aren't getting as many reps, but guys aren't complaining. There's no even thought of that right now. They're just kind of doing their job. And if they do their job, they really break down the film, then you're going to get the playing time that you deserve.
Yeah, I think you brought up a good note, right? Like, I know we've been ahead of the sticks in terms of scholarships just with COVID and being able to bring in more players, but this might be the first time we'll be at 85 scholarships with FBS players clear across the board. And as much as like defense last year got a lot of talk, obviously Jalen Green had just an historic season, the run defense, I mean, we had a former quarterback at safety. We had a former walk-on at safety as well, and some other 3rd or 4 year players that, I think maybe other teams scouted them and were able to scheme them up a little bit. And we saw that on the back end. So I'm excited to see what the athleticism will bring in. I'd love to kind of hear you. We've got Charlotte in 2 weeks. For our listeners, love to kind of, do you have any talks coming up with maybe Charlotte to do any previews with them? Like, I know we've got a lot of fans in the area that are eager to be at Jerry Richardson.
We will. Every week I plan on at least doing an interview with the opposing radio voice. So we'll have that, I think, every week. But I will hint that stay tuned over the course of the next couple days. there are going to be a couple things announced that will bring even more coverage to James Madison Athletics on the radio. So there are a couple of shows coming up. One has been hinted at quite a bit with a certain linebacker that is going to probably join me every once in a while, or if not every week. So there's going to be an official announcement here this week, but you can probably look forward to something with a certain linebacker joining me. And then there's going to be another show that almost every team in America has done a show like this, and JMU has not for quite some time. It's been about a decade since a certain show has been done. So there's going to be a weekly show coming up too that I think will be a lot of fun. So couple things on the horizon that will keep me more busy, but also give JMU fans more access and, again, a lot more content here coming up that are going to be a lot of fun. So stay tuned this week. Going to be a couple big announcements with the JMU Radio Network and some coverage that we're going to expand on here soon.
Well, this is sounding good. I have a feeling I know which two of those shows are going to be, it sounds like, but this will be fun. So the only question I have, and it's, other than the communication and access, what's the biggest surprise you've had with the program so far?
The access is probably the biggest one because on the first day of training camp, I've done my show live almost every day of training camp, and that was never even a possibility in the past. I went up to Coach Chesney after day one of training camp, and I go, "Hey, do you care if I get this guy, this guy?" He goes, "Dave," he goes, "I trust you. You can have whatever player you want." And I haven't been told that here before in the past. Coach Signetti, again, it's just a different way of doing things. But to have that access is just unbelievable. Again, as I mentioned, 31 different guys since camp started. And we'll do more this week. We'll get guys on this week that we haven't been able to get on. So it's just being able to get more guys on. That's the one thing. But just the one thing that stands out with this group, man, they have recruited unbelievable human beings. And you guys get to talk to them every week now, too. There are some great guys on this roster. And not that there weren't in the past. There were. The previous coaching staff, Coach Signetti and that staff, I still love those guys. I'm going to watch Indiana and see how they do. But they recruited really good guys, too. But we just didn't have access to it. Now we have access to all of these guys. And they bring in high-quality guys that fit this system and are very respectful. And they are very intelligent human beings that are going to be very successful after their football careers are over, whenever that is. So the access, though, it's just the biggest thing. It's so much different than it has been in the past, and that has me so excited and again, even more involved with this program, which is so much fun for me.
Where do you see them, I guess, at this point in camp? I guess I've got an opinion about it, but you see them more than anybody. Do you see them ahead of where they were last year at this time in camp, or about the same, or what do you think?
They're way ahead of where they've been in the past. They just are. And that's one thing I want to ask Coach Chesney this week. Compared to his teams at Holy Cross when he's had veteran teams, I want to know from him where this team is in camp when he's had veteran teams. With so many new players, is it similar to what he's had when he's had veteran teams at Holy Cross? Because in my estimation, there's been scrimmages that I've watched in the past. And again, obviously 11 wins last year, 11 wins last year, 8 wins 2 years ago. Those seasons turned out really good. But there were times in training camp when I was really concerned about what was going on. I'm not concerned, and I guess that's pretty big words, but this team is ahead of other teams in the past. They just are. It's just, I don't know what it is, but this team is ahead of other teams in the past. Hopefully they can have that success. It doesn't mean they're going to, but they're ahead of where they've been in the past.
Yeah, I agree. They look like, to me last night, without giving anything away, they're already in week 2 of the season is kind of where they look to me. But I wanted to get your feel on it. But let me turn it back.
They're ahead of where they've been.
Yeah, they look remarkably better than they did this time last year. I remember I was worried this time last year.
I agree. Jonathan, you're muted.
There we go. And we had a little bit of okay. My last question for you is: take us inside the booth this year. New color commentator this fall coming in the booth. Has that been decided yet, or
let's break the news right now. Should we just break it right now?
Yeah, love that.
Okay. Because this is something that was going to come up on the horizon as well. So obviously it's a challenge being in Harrisonburg. Again, it's not a metropolis. Guys that graduate, sometimes they don't always stick around here. So it's a challenge to find guys. Drew Painter was unbelievable last year, but he's working at Baylor right now in the strength and conditioning staff. So kind of went on a search to try and find some former players that could give us some pretty good access. And the one thing is it's obviously hard to commit each and every week, especially road games and everything like that. So it's going to be an all-star cast of analysts this year. So we will mix it up with former linebacker Kelvin Azanama.
There we go. Good call.
Former punter Harry O'Kelly.
No one's ever heard of him. Straight,
yeah,
real shy behind the mic. But in his own admission, will say doesn't know much about football, but it will be entertaining. So
that's the one thing. He may not be able to break down what I'm talking about, but he will have fun doing it. So that'll be fun to have him on. And then one guy that should be able to break it down is former quarterback Cole Johnson.
There you go.
So we'll have Cole Johnson, Harry O'Kelly, and Kelvin Azanama helping me in the booth. We'll kind of rotate throughout the season. They'll have different games, but not exactly what I wanted, but I'm excited for kind of an all-star analyst group to help me out here this season.
My only request of you, just so you continue to maintain your access, is maybe just tell Harry not to call Coach Chesney Bobby again. I've heard that. I've heard he loves that. So
yeah, exactly. Don't talk about his height or say Bobby
or shirts. So, yeah, shirts, Bobby, or yeah. Well, Dave, again, I know we say this to you often, but first of all, you give incredible amounts of time to anyone who asks it. That's appreciated. You work harder than maybe anybody in the business, and more importantly for me, you can tell when you love what you do, and that comes through in your coverage, and I believe that is why you get the access that you do. It's because you carry yourself with class, and you're somebody they can trust, but you also just love the players, and you do the best that you can to present them and the coaches staff each and every week in the best of ways by letting their personalities and stories thrive, and that's what it should be. It's not about you, it's about them, and it's appreciated from all of us. And work a little harder, because I know you're not doing anything right now. You're just sitting home watching TV. But as always, thanks again, Dave, for what you've done this camp and what you're going to do all season, bring great coverage, and we know we'll talk to you as we go throughout. So enjoy the last few minutes of the soccer game. Maybe there's a miracle on the horizon. Probably not, but okay.
Still down Tuesday.
It's still down too. Thanks again, Dave, as always.
Guys, I appreciate everything you do. Anytime you need me, just let me know, but I appreciate it, and we'll talk again soon.
Awesome. All right. And with that, bring the rest of the crew back on for our final thoughts segment. Guys, that was a great episode. Lots of great conversation. But again, the thing for me that really stood out tonight is, as Dave said, we've got some unbelievable people in this program at the moment at every layer doing incredible stuff to just be great ambassadors for the university and the crest they wear on their shirts. Taylor, I'll come to you first for final thoughts, just because you're right next to me on the screen.
I think, one thought I've had is that with this new era of the transfer portal and teams looking so different year to year, that a lot of the preseason rankings and preseason predictions that you're seeing from national media or even just regional media that's covering the Sun Belt, it's been really hard for me to get really too excited about it, whether we're up, whether we're down. To be honest, I've seen JMU, top 40 in some polls. I've seen them in the bottom 30, and it has a lot to do with how closely those media outlets are following JMU or even following G5. And all that to be said, the preseason rankings for me have just lost a lot of their oomph, a lot of their value. And so that's why I was interested in talking to Dave Riggert, was just to kind of get a pulse. We can really only measure ourselves against ourselves. And when you hear him talk about this team, and I think he's trying to be respectful of the coaches and the program for everything that he has witnessed, but it's hard to not see how excited he is about the team, and just flat out saying that we are ahead of where we've been in the past compared to other very successful JMU programs. I think when you see some of the players come on, especially the players that have been here a few years, and you hear them talk about the program, I mean, obviously they're going to be biased, and obviously they're going to be excited for their own team, but there's a level of confidence that's there that you wouldn't see if you really thought this was going to be a season you're going to go into and struggle. And then most of all, the clips that we've been seeing from some of the coaches that periodically are popping up on social media, I mean, it's an excitement. Practices are fun. They're things to look forward to. It's hard not to get really excited about what this team can do this year. And again, I think that 8-3 season that we had 2 years ago, the ball bounces a different way on a couple of those games, we're barely having a 500 record. So,
or if there's no thunderstorm.
Sure. I mean, absolutely. And I think we've seen really great teams have mediocre records. We've seen mediocre teams have really great records. So this isn't so much to tell the JMU Nation, go ahead and lock in, another undefeated or one-loss season, but it is to say that based on everything that we've seen, based on everything that the coaches, the players, the media that is covering this team, as Dave said, this is a team to expect to not only compete for an Eastern Division championship, they should compete for a Sun Belt championship. And in this new first year of the college football playoff, this is a team that has the ability and the opportunity to go after one of those spots. And I think that should give all of JMU Nation a lot of excitement going into these first games. Charlotte is a travelable game. We have the first home game against Gardner-Webb. UNC is a very easy travel game. So get out, support this team, make your plans now. This is going to be a team that you're going to want to watch, and it's going to be it's going to be going from the very start.
Awesome. Steve, I'll come to you next.
Yeah, I love this. This is a good show. I saw somebody send us a message that said, if you don't have a pulse and if you're not excited, you don't have a pulse tonight. And I agree. I want folks to continue to ignore us, continue to think we're rebuilding, continue to think we can't do it again. I love when we're the underdog. And so it's nice for people to think it. Get your tickets to ULM. So far, it sounds like me and Matt Roan, we're going to ULM. I need somebody else to go with me. We're going to hit every one of those games. We're 7-point favorite at Charlotte. I think that's low. I think this team is exceptionally bonded. I'm surprised, to be frank. You bring in that many people at work. Think about if you lost half of your work team and you brought in another half of a team and you had 7 months to get them to gel because you had a big project to do at the end of August. And they all gelled and everybody's great and having a good time working together. That's almost impossible to do. And this coaching staff has the ability, and it's an uncanny ability, to meld these guys together. And I give the guys all the credit too. I mean, that's why I asked the question. They could have frozen each other out. I mean, Cole Potts easily could have said, you know what? I'm not paying attention to Pat McMurtrie from Holy Cross. I don't give a crap if he came from there. I'm going to pay attention to the guys I know. That didn't happen. That happens on a lot of teams. Many teams that happens. You don't see that at JMU. That's not our culture. It's never been our culture, but actually Chesney has done something I didn't think anybody could, is actually elevate the culture at JMU. I thought we already had the greatest culture. I think he's elevated it. So I'm extremely happy, extremely excited. And 49ers, whatever your stupid name is, wear your gold uniform because we're coming for you and we're coming hard. And if you think you're in for just some fun on the 31st, we're going to kick the ever-living hell out of you. Can't wait for it.
Michael.
I was going to say, let me add on to that, right? Because, not only do I feel like this team is being slept on, it's just amazing to think that not only did we bring other players, we've brought players or other coworkers, like Steve said, that have done this before. Shout out to the Sun Belt Syndicate, by the way, for having us on Wednesday. We did a breakdown preview there. There was a lot of questions around Jacob Dobbs. And if you look at Jacob Dobbs' statistics over at Holy Cross, they're like Jason Henderson level, right? 150 tackles a year. If you guys might remember Stephon Robertson, he never won a Player of the Year, Defensive Player of the Year award nationally because his stats were never good enough. And I feel like this is that type of team where Dobbs doesn't have to make the play every time. Spence doesn't have to make the play every time, right? There's so many quality players that were brought in, that have bought in, right? Like, obviously Stephon won the Dudley Award, which is the Virginia State Player of the Year, but like he was never in the National Defensive Player of the Year awards because those guys would have 180 tackles on terrible defenses, right? So I think we've got that type of level of talent. And to add to this too, there was a lot of questions too about, how are we going to replace Zach Horton or Surratt or all these guys? Let me ask you, outside of maybe 5% of JMU Nation, who knew Elijah Surratt going into game 1 of last season? He was on the third team. Who knew Zach Horton outside of Taylor Adkins last year? Who knew? Who knew Jalen Green? I was told Jalen Green was a third down pass rush specialist at his best. And who knew he would have a breakout season? I think that's the type of season we're looking forward to. There are going to be plenty of names that are going to fall right into line into the big names that we saw last year that are going to have the same level of impact. It might be across multiple players versus relying on one or two. But I'm just so super thrilled. I've made the trip down to North Carolina like 3 times in the last month for various events, so I'm well versed on how to get down to Charlotte, and I can't wait to be there on 8/31.
Well, my last thought on one of the points that Taylor made is I didn't know how easy it was going to be to root for this team when we had all the transfer news that came out, around the end of the year. But the one thing that's really been a kind of a fascinating and really positive development is to think if we didn't have the transfers that we did, we wouldn't have got to know people like a Jacob Dobbs. We wouldn't have necessarily gotten to know somebody like a Christopher Fitzgerald, who is now quickly becoming my favorite person on this roster. You look at, have had the pleasure of meeting guys like Cam Ross, who just, they shine both on the field and what they do in their personality. So I guess maybe the new reality that we're all living through as sports fans is, yes, it's going to be hard to see people leave Harrisonburg. But when you have a coaching staff like this and a culture like we do at JMU, it's going to bring in some new people who are going to quickly become your favorites. And that's why I'd like to kind of end on, that's the beauty of access. And I think that was the point that I took from Dave Riggert's interview, is when a program values giving fans insight into who is behind these teams and who wears the jerseys, you're going to quickly start to form those bonds and those relationships that are going to drive people to buy tickets, drive people to make donations to groups like the Duke Club and the Montpelier Collective, because they're seeing so much more than just a jersey number and a stat line in either the box to score or somewhere on their app that they're looking for week in and week out. And that's something that should be celebrated, that this coaching staff values it. And I think we're only scratching the surface of what the outcome of that's going to be, because we're always in recruiting mode. So this staff is already recruiting for the next wave of high school students and transfers that are going to come as we move into the future. And when they see this culture and when they see interviews like the offensive line coach who came from the Giants, who said, he walked into the front door of the APC and the first thing that happened was Coach Chesney got in a wrestling match with his son. And he said, I hope to never leave this program. I want to coach with Coach Chesney for the rest of the career. You don't just say that if the culture is not A+, and that tends to lead to great results on the field. As Riggert said, you never know how the bouncers are going to go. But the fact that this program is set up with such good people tends to breed success. And I know I am excited to make the trip down to Charlotte and for many more trips as we go throughout the season. So, guys, thank you, as always, for another great episode. One more plug: Champions Drive Bourbon for the Montpelier Collective. Check your emails tomorrow. There will be messages coming out from the Montpelier Collective about how those who have made donations to the collective can have their early access to the bourbon. General public will have access the following day as we continue to, again, drive home that this is a product that will enhance your tailgate experience. But the end goal of this is to make sure that the Montpelier Collective has the resources we need to make all of our athletic programs, not just the football program, not just the basketball program, our lacrosse teams, our volleyball, field hockey, all of the programs at JMU softball and baseball need your support to continue to thrive. MontpelierCollective.com. Learn information about Champions Drive. Make your donation to all of our sponsors: Skyline Financial, Where's Woody, Talent Corps, Your Purple Nation, and Shoker Enterprises. Thank you for your support. And as always, go Dukes. We'll talk to you next week. JMU, sound off.